Diane Carter's knuckles were still raw from 30 years of bleach and cold water when she slid the DNA results across the mahogany table at four people who looked like they would rather burn the building down than share their last name with her. And the 99.8% probability staring back at them meant their father, the great Honorable Edward Hargrove III, had loved the help more than he had ever loved himself. The law office of Whitmore and Associates smelled like leather and inherited confidence. The kind of place where even the silence felt expensive. Diane sat in a chair that probably cost more than her mother had made in 2 years of cleaning the Hargrove estate, facing a family that had spent 3 decades pretending she did not exist. Edward Hargrove's eldest son, Preston, had the kind of stillness that comes from a lifetime of never being told no. His jaw tightened. His eyes went to Diane's face, then to the calluses on her hands, then back to the paper. He looked at her the way people look at water damage on a ceiling, like a problem that had been there all along, but was only now becoming impossible to ignore. "This is a mistake," he said. His voice was the kind of quiet that had always preceded something ugly. "This is a very expensive mistake." Diane looked at him for a long moment. "No," she said. "The mistake was made 31 years ago. I am just the one who has to live with it. To understand what happened in that law office, you have to understand what happened before it." Gloria Carter came to Savannah from a small town in rural Georgia in 1989. She was 22 years old, had $40 in her pocket, and a grandmother's address written on the back of a church bulletin. She found work through a domestic agency cleaning houses for Savannah's old money families. The Hargroves were her third client, and her last. Edward Hargrove was 51. His wife Margaret had taken their children to their summer home in Hilton Head for 6 weeks. Edward had stayed behind. He said it was for business. Gloria said nothing at all. She was not in a position to say anything. What happened between them, whether it was love or something uglier, is a story only Gloria ever knew completely. She left the Hargrove house 8 months later. Quietly, with a check she never cashed and a silence she carried for the rest of her life. Diane was born on a February morning in 1990. Gloria raised her alone in a 2-bedroom apartment that always smelled faintly of pine sol. She worked double shifts. She bought Diane books from the library sale bin. She never once said the name Hargrove in her daughter's presence. But she kept a Bible on her nightstand, and inside that Bible, folded and refolded till the creases had worn soft, were 31 letters she had written to a man who never read them. Gloria Carter died of a stroke in March of last year. She was 56 years old. It was at the reading of Gloria's will, modest almost painfully so, that Diane found the Bible. And the letters inside it. And underneath the letters, a single document she had never seen before. A letter from the law firm of Whitmore and Associates addressed to Gloria Carter, dated 8 months before her death. The letter was formal, careful, the language of men who bill by the hour. It informed Gloria Carter that Edward Hargrove III had passed away on January 14th, that he had, in a handwritten amendment to his will witnessed and notarized in October of the previous year, acknowledged a biological daughter named Diane Carter, that this daughter was to be notified upon his death, that Gloria Carter was not to receive any portion of the estate, but that Diane Carter was entitled to 31% of the Hargrove holdings, 31% of an estate valued at $480 million. Diane read the letter 3 times, standing in her mother's kitchen, still wearing the coat she had come in with. The refrigerator hummed. A neighbor's dog barked twice and went quiet. The world continued doing exactly what it had always done. She sat down on the linoleum floor, the same floor her mother had scrubbed on hands and knees even after she had gotten sick, because it gave her something to do with her hands, and she stayed there for a long time. She called the law firm the next morning. They confirmed everything. They were expecting her. She drove to Savannah in a 12-year-old Honda Civic with $200 in her checking account and a DNA test she had ordered online with money she had borrowed from her best friend. The results had come back 99.8%. And now she was here, in this chair, in this room, looking at Preston Hargrove's jaw. "I am not asking for your permission," she said, and her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I am telling you what the will says." The attorney, a thin man named Caldwell, who had clearly hoped this meeting would go very differently, cleared his throat. The amendment is valid, he said. It was witnessed by 2 independent parties and has been reviewed by 3 separate state's attorneys. Mr. Hargrove's wishes are legally binding. Preston looked at Caldwell the way you look at someone who has just become inconvenient to you. My father, he said slowly, was not in a sound state of mind in his final year. Your father, Caldwell replied, and something shifted behind his eyes, was of entirely sound mind. I have video documentation of the signing. He was very clear about what he wanted. The youngest Hargrove daughter, Evelyn, made a sound that was not quite a word. Her husband put a hand on her arm. Nobody looked at Diane. The days after the meeting moved strangely. Fast in some ways, slow in others. Diane went back to her apartment in Atlanta and tried to process the fact that she was on paper worth more money than she had ever been able to imagine. She had $47 in her account. She owed 2 months back rent. Her car needed new brake pads. And somewhere in Savannah, a family was deciding what to do about her. She found out about the private investigator on a Tuesday. Her neighbor mentioned that a man had come by asking questions. What time did Diane leave for work? Did she have a boyfriend? Had anyone unusual come to visit recently? He had said he was from an insurance company. He had been wearing a sport coat that did not fit right. Diane called Caldwell immediately. They are going to contest the will, he said. I expected it. Preston Hargrove did not build his reputation by giving things away quietly. What are my options? At the moment, you wait. You document everything, and you do not speak to anyone connected to the Hargrove family without an attorney present. I do not have an attorney. A pause. You do now, he said. Edward specifically allocated funds for your legal representation. He thought about this. He knew what his family was capable of. That night, Diane sat in the dark in her kitchen and read her mother's letters. 31 of them, one for every year since she had left the Hargrove house. Some were angry. Some were grief that had dried into something quieter and more permanent. One written the year Diane turned 13 was nothing but a description of her daughter. The way she laughed, the way she argued the books she was reading, written to a man Gloria had clearly decided she would never send them to, but could not stop speaking to anyway. The last letter was dated 4 months before Gloria's stroke. I did not know what happens after we die, she had written. But I hope it is something, because I have things I still need to say. And there are things Diane deserves to know. I just never found the words while I was alive. Diane put the letter down. She found the words, Mama, she thought. They found us. She opened her laptop and began making a list of everything she could document, every conversation, every date, every time a car had sat too long on her street. She was done being a secret. 3 weeks later, Diane received a formal offer. $15 million. A signed agreement that she would make no public statements about her relationship to the Hargrove family. A non-disclosure agreement that extended to any future children she might have. And a single line at the bottom of the offer that are written in Preston Hargrove's own handwriting. This is the only offer you will receive. Take it and have a good life. Diane read it sitting in Caldwell's office. Caldwell watched her face. When she looked up, he said, You do not have to decide today. I have already decided, she said. You understand if you reject this, and we go to court, it could take years. They have resources. So does the truth, Diane said. I found 31 letters in my dead mother's Bible. She wrote them to a man who knew she existed and still let her die without a word. I am not signing a document that tells my future children they do not have a grandfather. I am not taking $15 million to pretend I do not exist. She stood up. Tell Preston Hargrove, she said, that his father left me 31% because he knew exactly what $15 million meant to this family. An inconvenience. Something to be managed. She picked up her bag. I am not an inconvenience. I am the daughter he chose. Tell him I will see him in court. She walked out through the glass lobby, past the receptionist, who watched her go past the parking meter she had paid in quarters, and into the Savannah sun. The street was loud and ordinary. Tourists. Pigeons. The smell of someone's lunch from a restaurant 2 doors down. Diane stood on the sidewalk and breathed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Caldwell sent before she had even reached her car. For what it is worth, you are right. Your father knew exactly what he was doing. I helped him write it. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "Thank you for telling me." And she got in her car. And she drove. 2 days later, Caldwell called. His voice was different. "Diane," he said, and she could hear something careful underneath the word, "I need you to listen to me. There's something I should have told you in the meeting." She pulled over. "Turn the radio off. The amendment your father signed, the one that names you, it is legitimate. I told you that. That is the truth. But when I filed it with the probate court yesterday, one of my clerks flagged something in the original with a version that was filed before your father's amendment." Her hands tightened on the phone. "Caldwell. There is another name," he said quietly. "Another amendment. Filed 6 weeks before Edward's death. Before the one naming you." A long pause. "It names a different beneficiary," he said. "Someone I have never heard of. Someone who, as far as I can tell, may not exist." Outside the car window, a child ran past with a red balloon. A woman laughed at something on her phone. The world kept going. Or Caldwell said, someone who very much exists, and who has been very quiet until now. Diane stared at the street. "Who is it?" she said. Caldwell took a breath. "That is what we need to find out," he said. "Because if this amendment is real, Diane, it predates yours. And if it predates yours, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Who is the mystery beneficiary? Was the amendment forged, and by whom? And why did Edward Hargrove bury one secret inside another?" Drop your theories in the comments. Like if Diane deserves the truth. Subscribe because part 2 is going to change everything.